just about Lecuona and Ray there as well. Both of them putting in their personal bests last time around. And for Jonathan Ray, that's the important thing. We know he's out there on that longer run. As you get more and more comfortable out there with a new package, you're able to understand how hard and how aggressive you're able to be with the X tyre from the get-go in races as well. And that's part of the learning and adaptation process for Ray as well.
That time of race less than a second slower than Nicolo Bulega's fastest time of the afternoon in FP2. As Lecuona thinks about making an overtake on Jonathan Ray in free practice 2 this afternoon. Lecuona at the moment 5th fastest, Ray down in P11.
Just to give a comparison as well, for Alvaro Bautista, race 2 last year, it was low 34s were his race pace for the vast majority of that race. So that gives it, again, another indication of where you need to be. For Jonathan Ray, it's mid 34s right now, so not a million miles off where he needs to be, but you're able to then remember that there's still race 1, the Superpole race, and race 2 as well as the rest of the running over the weekend to find that time. So that's in the ballpark of where they need to be.
Nicolo Bulega 1.5 tenths of a second up after 2 completed sectors on that lap. Again, he's losing ground in sector 4. Looks like there's a bit of a weakness for Bulega in that final sector. Yeah,
and it is difficult here at Misano to be able to put together a bike and a package that works all the way around this track, because there's tight corners, there's first gear corners. We're not used to having as many first gear corners as what we have around Misano, and I think that's one of the big challenges for the teams to be able to put together the right package, because you still need top speed for the long run out of turn 10 and up towards turn 11, but you need to be able to get a bike that stops really well and then fires out of those first gear corners. So it is tough to find the right balance all the way around here.
Yes, Caro, turn 14 is the slowest on the circuit, and that may well then decide the momentum coming off that corner dictates what's left of a lap, so could just be a question of losing a bit of time through there for Nicolo Bulega. Anyway, he's over a tenth up again after 2 completed sectors of his latest lap, so this could be an opportunity for him to improve once again. Good consistent pace for Bulega this afternoon as well. And we're riding on board with Alvaro Bautista. He's coming through this final sector now, and he's was a tenth of a second up on anyone else after sector 2. Lost a little bit of ground in sector 3, but the lap overall is good enough to put him P2 this afternoon, and the latest rider into the 1:33s here in Misano.
Yeah, and losing a bit of time in that final sector as well, a couple of tenths compared to Bulega, who's up by a tenth of a second as he comes across the line and finds that bit of time in that last sector. 4 tenths of a second faster than his teammate Bautista, and you know, that does set it up nicely between those two riders. Alvaro far from having it his own way within the Aruba squad this year.
Yes, but Bautista doesn't mind playing the long game, does he? And here in Misano, you think about some of the winning margins that he's been able to accumulate just by keeping the tyre for the second half of the race. You don't get that clear picture in a free practice 2 session in general as to what could happen in the second half of a race in particular.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things that we've seen from Bulega through this course of this season as well is in the free practice sessions, we haven't seen him put together all those longer runs of laps as well. It's tended to be shorter stints and just trying to get his bike into the operating window for him. But maybe for the rest of the season, that's an area where himself and the Aruba squad might well have to focus on.
It's bizarre in a way, isn't it? Because we know he's going to have the single lap pace because he does at each round. We know he's going to have pace in the early stages of races because, again, he's been able to do that when the opportunity presents itself. The doubt is over what he does in the second half of races, and we've seen him have his pocket picked already on at least one occasion earlier on in this season.
Yeah, what we've seen from a lot of other riders is they want to get into a battle with him, and they think that that's a weakness for him, and there's sharks in the water and they see blood, and it's one of those things that until you're able to prove that it's not a weakness, everyone else is trying to capitalise on it. And for Bulega, though, third in the World Championship as a rookie, he's been really impressive, and I don't want to take anything away from that.
No, and particularly when he's in clear air. There's no one really who seems to be quite so strong as Nicolo Bulega in clear air, but as you say, everyone's been quite happy on the opening few laps of races to just beat him up a little bit, push him back in the pack, and from there it's much harder to recover.
Yeah, and it is difficult to recover if you lose any ground in the middle of a battle, and I think that's one of the things that we've seen in World Superbikes over the last few years, is that because it's gotten so close and competitive, if you give up a couple of seconds, it takes a long time in a race to gain that back, even if in theory you have that faster bike underneath you.
Checkered flag's going to be out in less than 20 seconds, so riders starting a lap now will get in one more, and then that will be just about everything, as we see Andrea Locatelli making his way through the final sector.
We saw Ray come across the line as well on the number 65 Yamaha, and again another lap within a few hundredths of a second of his fastest time in this session. So good pace at the end of his stint in terms of consistency, but obviously 13th fastest in this session, not where he'd expect to be. 14th fastest on the combined times. So we'll wait and see what happens in the Super Pole session, because that's when everyone has to put their cards on the table. But for Ray and for the Yamaha squad down there in the 14th on the combined, I think after the test they would have expected a little bit more, but you're never really sure what program anyone's working on in a Friday practice session.
Looked like watching Egerter and Locatelli on their last couple of laps, they've got a bit of a deficit in that final sector as well. Both were up after 3 completed sectors on that last lap, for example. They've now taken the checkered flag, but in sector 4 just losing a little bit of ground. So it looks like some bikes more than others losing out in that final sector.
Yeah, they're 0.3 of a second off the pace in that final sector for their best final sector, never mind what they're doing on any individual lap. So they'll certainly know that there's room for improvement there compared to Bulega, but Bulega's got 0.2 of a second on everyone in that sector as well, so he's clearly generating a lot of lap time there.
Yes, at the moment it's Razgatlioglu and Bulega with Alvaro Bautista waiting in the wings, isn't it? That's what we've seen on the evidence of free practice as a whole. Is that a fair summary of what we've seen? Toprak certainly owning FP1, Bulega comfortably fastest in similar vein in FP2, and then Bautista, Iannone, a few others as well, able to get sub 1 minute 34 to just keep their names in the ring, as it were.